Saint Augustine commentary on Psalm 99 following. Moses and Aaron among his priests, and Samuel among such as call upon his name. These called upon the Lord, and he heard them. Verse 6. He spake unto them out of the cloudy pillar. Verse 7. Of Moses, it is not there stated that he was a priest. But if he was not this, what was he? Could he be anything greater than a priest? This psalm declares that he also was himself a priest, Moses and Aaron among his priests. They, therefore, were the Lord's priests. Samuel is read of later in the book of Kings. This Samuel is in David's times, for he anointed the holy David. Samuel, from his infancy, grew up in the temple. He mentions these, and by these desires us to understand all the saints. Yet, why has he here named those? Because we said that we ought here to understand Christ. Attend, holy brethren, he said above, O magnify the Lord our God, and fall down before his footstool, for he is holy. Praising someone, that is our Lord Jesus Christ, whose footstool is to be worshipped, because he assumed flesh, in which he was to appear before the human race, and wishing to show unto us that the ancient fathers also had preached of him, because our Lord Jesus Christ is himself the true priest, he mentioned these, because God spake unto them out of the cloudy pillar. What means out of the cloudy pillar? He was speaking figuratively. For if he spoke in some cloud, those obscure words predicted someone unknown, yet to be manifest. This unknown one is no longer unknown, for he is known by us, our Lord Jesus Christ. He who first spoke out of the cloudy pillar has in person spoken unto us in his footstool, that is, on earth, when he had assumed the flesh, for which reason we worship his footstool, for he is holy. He himself used to speak out of the cloud, which was not then understood. He has spoken in his own footstool, and the words of his cloud have been understood. They kept his testimonies and the law that he gave them. You heard them, he said, O Lord our God. You were forgiving to them, O God. Verse 8. God is not said to be forgiving toward anything but sins. When he pardons sins, then he forgives. And what had he in them to punish, so that he was forgiving in pardoning them? He was forgiving in pardoning their sins. He was also forgiving in punishing them. For what follows? And punishes all their own affections. Even in punishing them, you were forgiving toward them. For not in remitting, but also in punishing their sins, have you been forgiving. Consider, my brethren, that he has taught us here, attend. God is angry with him whom, when he sins, he scourges not. For unto him, to whom he is truly forgiving, he not only remits sins, that they may not injure him in a future life, but also chastens him, that he delights not in continual sin. Come, my brethren, if we ask how these were punished, the Lord will aid me to tell you. Let us consider these three persons, Moses, Aaron, and Samuel, and how they were punished, since he said, "You have punished all their own affections," meaning those affections of theirs which the Lord knew in their hearts, which men knew not. For they were living in the midst of the people of God without complaint from man. But what do we say? That perhaps the early life of Moses was sinful, for he fled from Egypt after slaying a man. Exodus chapter 2, verse 12 to 15. The early life of Aaron also was such as would displease God, for he allowed a maddened and infatuated people to make an idol to worship. Exodus chapter 32, verse 1 to 4. And an idol was made for God's people to worship. What sin did Samuel, who was given up when an infant to the temple? He passed all his life amid the holy sacraments of God, from childhood the servant of God. Nothing was ever said of Samuel, nothing by men. Perhaps God knew of someone there to chasten, since even what seems perfect unto them, and to that perfection is still imperfect. Artists show many of their works to the unskillful, and when the unskillful have pronounced them perfect, the artists polish them still further, as they know what is still wanting to them, so that men wonder at things they had imagined already perfect, having received so much additional polish. This happens in buildings and in paintings and in embroidery and almost in every species of art. At first they judge it to be already in a manner perfect, so that their eyes desire nothing further. But the judgment of the inexperienced eye is one, and that of the rule of art another. Thus also these saints were living before the eyes of God, as if faultless, as if perfect, as if angels. But he who punished all their own affections knew what was wanting in them. But he punished them not in anger, but in mercy. He punished them that he might perfect what he had begun, not to condemn what he had cast away. God therefore punished all their affections. How did he punish Samuel? Where is this punishment? What was said unto Moses was a type, not a punishment. What punishment is death to an old man? What punishment was it not to enter into that land into which unworthy men entered? But what is said of Aaron? He also died an old man. His son succeeded him in the priesthood. His son afterwards ruled in the priesthood. How did he punish Aaron also? Numbers chapter 20, verses 24 to 28, and chapter 33, verse 38. Samuel also died a holy old man, leaving his sons as his successors. 1 Samuel 8:1 and chapter 25, verse 1. I seek for the punishment inflicted upon them, and according to men I find it not, but according to what I know the servants of God suffer every day. They were day by day punished. Read you and see the punishments, and you also who are advanced bear the punishments. Every day they suffered from the obstinate people. Every day they suffered from the ungodly livers, and were compelled to live among those whose lives they daily censured. This was their punishment. He unto whom it is small has not advanced far, for the ungodliness of others torments you in proportion as you have departed far from your own.